There is currently a conversation happening between the MLB and the MLBPA that is not going well. Okay, normally working negotiations and collective bargaining and things of that nature are always contentious because there's a lot of money on the line. You never hear like, you know what, collective bargaining conversations went well. You never ever hear that. That is just something that doesn't happen because one side is loaded with billionaires that are looking to keep their money in their business, and without them, the business doesn't exist, the league doesn't exist, and they know that. And on the other sides are the people who make it happen, and they know that without them, it doesn't exist as well. And although they aren't the owners, or they're not fronting the money or negotiating the deals that are creating the money or building the stadiums and things of that nature, they very much understand their importance of the whole thing. And without them, there's no that. So in a smart situation, you say, hey, we need each other. Let's go in here, shake hands. Let's figure this out because, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. But that's never how collective bargaining goes, ever. And the reason why billionaires and very rich people are very rich people is because in those said negotiations, they take a lot of pride in winning the negotiations. And now you have a MLBPA representative negotiating against somebody else. And it's getting to a point now where it feels as if the MLB and the MLBPA are not going to be able to come to a negotiation. We are to an agreement. We had Jeff Passan, the ESPN's baseball insider, on last week or 2 weeks ago. Was that last week?
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Jeez.
Feels like last week.
Jeez.
Last week.
Yeah.
Could have been a month ago.
Could have been 7 years ago, but it was during this quarantine. And he talked about how in the next 3 to 4 weeks, so if that was 2 weeks ago, the next 3 weeks, so we're currently in the last week then, which he said this was the biggest week in the last quarter century for baseball. So maybe this week or next week. He said in the next 3 to 4 weeks, a lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to happen. Not only do the governors have to okay that sports happen, which, by the way, check. Governors have basically said professional athletes are essential. Everywhere, even New Jersey, California, New York, where it's the worst. They're saying check. Mayors have to say it's okay, check. That has been accomplished. Then you have to figure out a way to get local television and local radio to agree to whatever the billing is going to be, because the local radio and local TV account for $2.5 billion of the MLB's net revenue every single year. So that has to be okay. So those are three things that not only did you need government, now you need local business, you need the whole thing. That has all happened. So now you need enough testing. We've gotten to the point, I guess, where there's enough testing. Then also you needed the players to agree to whatever the contract was going to be. It was prorated because they cut the games in half because they don't have enough time to do a full season because this is cut into their season forever. So you cut it in half, basically. So then after the cut in half, the MLB owners were like, excuse me, not just half a season now because we're not getting ticket sales. We have 7,000 games which have some tickets. We're not getting concessions. We're not getting as many hat sales. We're not getting as many merch sales. We don't have our national deals. Bing, bing. They start going through this entire thing. So not only is it half of your contract because you're playing half the games, now we would like to drop it down to a 50-50 split because that's only fair. Hey, let's split this thing 50-50. There's not as big of a pool as there usually would be. Even with half of the amount of games, there isn't the proper half amount of pool for us money to pull from. So we also want you to potentially take a 50-50 revenue split. The MLB players came out originally and were like, well, this is them trying to put a salary cap on baseball, which is something we've been against since the beginning of time. Everybody knows that. That's why the teams who invest in their players are normally good players, and the teams that are stuck with terrible owners, like the Pittsburgh Pirates, are kind of stuck in a cycle of doom and death and suck. But that is kind of the allure of baseball and for baseball players. That's why there's $450 million deals. They're playing all your 182 games are on the road. You have no idea how many throws you got left in your arm or hits you have left or stats or anything like that. So now they're like, even more your money's going to drop. So then they laid out basically what the money would be. And the one, let's just look at the one that makes the easiest to talk about. A $1 million deal, okay? Now, 40% of the league makes less than $1 million, but just for understanding purposes, let's go to the $1 million deal. 434% would be the MLB's proposal, or 434,000 would be their proposal on what you would make if you're originally scheduled to make $1 million this year, okay? So then you factor in the fact that 434,000 is in the highest tax bracket, so let's go ahead and knock 50% of that off. You do some quick math. What is that?
17.
217,000. You can add a couple because it's not a full 50%. It's like 48% once you pay state, NatFed, all the taxes you got to pay. So they're going to make like $220,000 on what was originally a $1 million contract, which is actually only like a $550,000 contract after taxes get in there. So you can see how the players are like, well, $220,000, I was supposed to make $1 million. Yes, $220,000 is a lot of money whenever you compare it to, the everyday working person. And you can see how fans are like in the middle of a pandemic. And you can see why Chipper Jones says, hey, MLB players, ain't nobody want to hear about how much money you're making. We're in the middle of a time where 38 million people are currently on unemployment. And I think that is a very reasonable thought, a very logical thought. But if you look at it from the player standpoint, they have no idea how long their careers are going to be. They have no idea how much money they'll be able to make with their arm. Now, Chipper Jones knows this more than I do or anybody else does. So him coming out against it, I think, is a big voice. But you can see why, once you start doing the math there, even the lowest, the league min, $262,000 is the proposal. That is still in the highest tax bracket. So you go ahead and cut that in half as well. So what's that, 131? You do quick math. Look at that. Hey, no calculator. Hey. So it's like $135,000 they're going to make whenever they thought they were originally going to make $280 or something like that. You could see how the players are a little bit alarmed, and you have no idea if guys are on the last year of their contracts looking to get the big paycheck next year. You have no idea if guys think they could potentially blow out their arm. You cut the stats also because the games are cut in half. Their hitting records, their stats, and everything like that are cut in half. But if you're a fan and you're a sports talk show and you want something to talk about, you say, hey boys, listen. This isn't something that's ever going to happen again. And I think 1918 or whatever, the Spanish flu potentially came in, and I saw pictures of people wearing masks in the crowd at a baseball game and things of that nature. It's almost like do you tell them, listen, you guys just got to suck it up here? Or do you say, hey, I can understand why you are upset because what you thought, your gift, the thing you've worked your ass off, the thing that you skipped parties in high school to get better, the thing you woke up before high school to get hacks in, whenever you were maybe into double A or in single A when you were traveling around on a bus while everybody else was having a good time and you were living in your car, you get to this point to get to the MLB. Now in the world that we're in, you have to take at least a 90-80% pay cut. I just don't know if you're going to be able to get the MLBPA to say, okay, yeah, that sounds good to us. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. So what does that mean? That means replacement players. That means hello, Shane Falco. That means Nigel McGuinness. That means this entire operation here is potentially playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah!